you talked in your opening statement about the national treasure that our public lands are, and you said that Teddy Roosevelt was, you were Teddy Roosevelt Republican. You said that before. I've heard you say it before. I appreciate it. Teddy Roosevelt is one of the people that I really look up to. What has made Teddy Roosevelt an icon is his ability to come into an area that was almost all wild and realize that it wouldn't always be that way unless he did things like set up parks and so that vision is what really, I think, sets Teddy Roosevelt apart from just about any other president that's served when it comes to our public lands. Which brings me to the Land Water Conservation Fund, a fund that has been fully funded twice since 1978 when it was first set up at $900 million off of offshore oil. Your budget puts in $8.1 million, and from the questions that Senator Daines had just asked, your statement to him was you didn't want to bring more land into the public lands domain because there's a maintenance problem. Did I mishear you on that, or is that correct? Is that why we're at $8.1 million?
The Land Water Conservation Act removes, or the proposed budget removes new acquisition. It does not remove properties that would come into conservation easements, but it does prioritize what we have. Up front, as you know, the budget is a proposal, and this is where the two branches come together.
I got you.
And discuss priorities.
Yeah.
And I've always worked with you on land and water conservation.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary. The chairwoman talked about Tara Sweeney yesterday. Here's the problem. The problem is that we all come from different parts of the world. Public lands is a Western thing, truly is. And for people to really understand here how important this is, we've got to have an advocate in the administration. That's you. To be able to say, you know what, 8.1 when it should be funded at $900 million, because I know in your heart that's where you think it should be funded. And don't let me put that in your heart unless it really is in your heart. But we've got to have a person that stands up and says, whoa, come on. Now, so is 8.1... Let's just be honest. I mean, what was the justification for that? Are there no projects nationwide? Are there, because the truth is these ecosystems aren't going to be around in 10 or 20 years. Teddy Roosevelt, they were going to be around in 10 or 20 years when he toured the country. But now they're not. And we're seeing lands being sold and checkerboards being taken away off the decade. So I just want to get your opinion, because it's really important that the Secretary of Interior understands it. It's not all on us. Some of it is. Good portion's on you.
No, and I agree that it takes working together on it. And I've been an advocate of the Land Water Conservation Fund. I'm also an advocate is we need to address our $11.7 billion backlog in our parks. And then our $1.2 billion in our wildlife bridges. And over the way, parks, and even though in the West we think that all the public land is out west, it's really not. We have great public land, battlefields on the East Coast that also need to be maintained. So the priority of this budget is infrastructure repair, backlog,
so that brings
and bring a discussion between the two groups.
That brings me to my next question, and that is that the revenue for rebuilding the national parks is not going to be taxpayer dollars. It's going to come off of all energy projects similar to LWCF. LWCF is funded at a pittance, $8 million when it should be $900 million. Why should we think that this proposal is going to be any different if it's going to be similar to LWCF?
Well, the proposal, which is bipartisan, was also a recommendation from numerous commission studies.
I got you.
But it also expands it, and the idea is this. It is a sound and prudent policy.
It's fine if it's done, and LWCF is a sound and prudent policy too, to take offshore drilling revenues and put $900 million towards this project in 1978 dollars, and they're not near as much now as they were in '78, and we're funding it, I don't know, 1% of what it should be.
And this is why there's two branches of government, and why I'm committed to work with you on it.
Good. Appreciate that. Now I want to talk about rural water projects. This is an issue that Senator Daines also brought up, and he said $50 million for Blackfeet water settlement to take into impact, use his numbers. We've got a project in north central Montana. We got a project in northeastern Montana. When I was first elected to the state legislature in 1998, these were $100 million projects total. Now they're north of $300 million projects total. FY17, there was $84.6 million, which wasn't near enough in that thing. In FY18, there's $120 million, which isn't near enough. Your proposal is 33.9. Blackfeet's going to require 50 in and of itself each year moving forward. We've got North Central Water Project that's 75% unfinished, that's going to get just under $4 million. How can this budget be? We're talking water infrastructure. We're talking about living up to our trust responsibilities. We're talking about making sure that these projects get built in my grandkids' lifetime, because at this rate they're not. How do we justify this kind of a budget figure?
So what happened, and why are we here? This was the great promise of the Bureau of Reclamation.
Yeah.
As the government would come in, make significant investment, because the local ranchers and farmers did not have the ability. And then over time, the water districts would pay those projects off, and the title would be transferred. The problem is Bureau of Reclamation rarely transferred those titles. So we're in the process of transferring, I think, well over 300 of these titles to free up maintenance money so we can maintain our obligations. And this didn't happen overnight, and it just wasn't the last administration. This has been decades.
You're right. But this is the lowest number we've seen, that I've seen in 11 and a half years that I've been here. It's the lowest number. And these are Indian water settlements. They're not irrigation projects. This is trust responsibility. Do the other communities get an opportunity to take advantage of this? You bet they do. And it's good, because it's good for rural America. These projects will never be built. There isn't enough money in this budget to take care of operations and maintenance, much less putting pipe in the ground.
And the budget does include about $173 million for Indian compacts. I understand that the obligations far exceed that. But we also have to remove our overhead and our legacy projects and transfer those titles. That will be significant to put more money into places where it's needed, rather than to continue to march on and not transfer these titles.
Thank you for being here. These projects won't get done unless there's real money in them. It's just not. Transferring, all that stuff, not going to happen unless there's money in the accounts, whether it's LWCF, whether it's Native American water settlements. I didn't even get into manpower. Those are big issues. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Tester. Senator Capito.